10. I'll give you a few seconds to do that one, and then we'll move on. All right, who chose A? Who chose B? Who chose C? And if you obviously you're going to raise your hand more than once. And who chose D? Okay, now let's talk about this. First thing, on your NCLEX, if it says select all that apply, it could mean select one answer or all of them. That is new this year. It used to be at least pick two. If it said select all that apply, and it was two, that could be one or all. So there's no.
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, or either 1 or 4.
It could be
like all or nothing you're saying, or no?
It could be pick one of them. One might be the right answer, or all of them might be the right answer. Two might be the right answer.
I thought you were saying it's either you only pick one or you pick them all.
No.
I was like, I hate that way. I have to figure out it too, so I need to
So we have somebody that's in cardiogenic shock. What is cardiogenic shock? We hear that word a lot.
You have less blood.
There's lots of causes for cardiogenic shock, but cardiogenic shock means that the heart muscle is not getting enough oxygen to feed itself. They're in cardiogenic shock, meaning that if they're not getting enough oxygen to the blood, to the heart, then it's not pumping effectively and the rest of the organs are going to fail. You can bleed out and get it, you can have an MI and get it. There's lots of ways you can get cardiogenic shock, but the bottom line is oxygen is not being perfused in all the organs. The organs are dying because of cardiogenic shock. So, to answer this question, you have to understand cardiogenic shock. So A, decreased urine specific gravity. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Diluted?
So if it's
Or no.
decreased, does that mean the patient is high or dry? Okay, let me say
Dry.
this. I just told you the answer. If it is decreased, does that mean the patient is wet or dry? The higher the number, the drier the patient. The higher the specific gravity, the more crap that's in the urine, and the higher the specific gravity, all that sediment. Higher the drier. 1.010 to 1.030 is normal. You need to know that. 1.010 to 1.030 is a normal specific gravity. So in a patient with cardiogenic shock, is their specific gravity going to be high or low?
High.
Why?
It is a dry.
They're going to be dry. So would A be the right answer? No. Increased BUN. Are they going to be high? Is it going to be high because they're dry? Yes. B is the right answer. C, decreased urine sodium. You're going to, water and salt go together. We're going to talk about it in just a second. Water and salt are buddies. How many of you can go and eat Mexican food and eat all those tortillas are so young. Eat all those tortilla chips and you wake up and your face is swollen and your feet swollen? Water follows salt. So everything's going to retain. Huh?
So you're saying in this one they would have increased sodium?
They would, if they're dumping it out, that B and C are the right one. Decreased urine sodium. So it's leaving. Decreased urine sodium.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And then decreased serum creatinine. What's the creatinine actually going to be? High. Because if the kidney isn't getting any perfusion, it's not excreting the creatinine, and it's going to climb in the body. You're going to have renal damage. Now, I want you guys to stand up real fast. Stand up. back down. Okay, so when you have cardiogenic shock, what happens in the body in a homeostasis way is exactly what just happened to you. When you stood up that fast, your baroreceptors in your kidneys realize that your blood pressure dropped. Okay? All the time, just like you have these little bitty ends, all these little bitty neutrophils, you have angiotensinogen. I don't know if I spelt it right. We're not English class. You have angiotensinogen floating around your blood all the time. It's there all the time. Nothing you can do about it. Whenever you jumped up like that, these little things here are kidneys, and I'm not an artist. These are kidneys. They have baroreceptors all through it. There is things called GQ cells within this. GQ cells in your kidneys. GQ, they're juguloglomerular.
You were
JG.
But you're saying GQ.
JG. I said it right. What did I say?
You said GQ, but you were writing JG.
It's JG. I do this a lot. So see, keep up or you'll be like, what? Okay, so JG. Why can't I say that? JG. JG cells in the kidneys. Whenever those baroreceptors are triggered by you jumping up something small or somebody in cardiogenic shock, these things release renin. It's a hormone. Renin, all it does is when renin hits this bloodstream, it makes angiotensinogen, angiotensin 1. So, kidneys excrete renin, trying to get the blood pressure up. Now we've got this is the whole body. We're circulating. Cardiogenic shock, it's not getting enough oxygen. Okay, so it's circulating. It leaves the kidney, it goes way up here, here's the heart, and here's, what are these things? Lungs. Once the blood that is now angiotensin hits the lungs, angiotensin 1 is converted to angiotensin 2 by an anti-ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. Now, angiotensin 2 is bad. Why?
It constricts.
It constricts. But this is great right now. Why do we want it to constrict?
Because we need to increase
We need to get our blood pressure up. As soon as this renin and angiotensin and all this is excreted, this triggers a little organ on top of the kidneys called the adrenal cortex. It excretes aldosterone. All that does is make the body hang on to sodium. Basically, the kidneys hang on to sodium. What did I just say happens if we have sodium? We have water. So now we have a smaller vessel that is constricted and more fluid in that. What's that done to our blood pressure? It increased it. That is called the renin angiotensin aldosterone pump. It's a hormone. It happens all the time, yes.
So what is it that causes the specific gravity to increase? I know it's the solute,
Okay.
it's not sodium, so.
Specific gravity, when it goes up, so you've all taken care of patients, right? So when you take care of patients and you look at that Foley bag and it looks like sand in there, granules in there, it's cloudy, it's thick. You took that specific gravity, it's going to be high. There's more mush in there. In this situation, potassium is being excreted and more of the filtered stuff. Sodium is being hung on. You're going to be looking at potassium and stuff. You're not going to break that down. Your specific gravity is going to be high because that patient's going to be dry. We know they're dry because there's no cardiac output. There's not enough fluid getting around. So specific gravity, remember, high, dry. We don't hardly, we look at the specific gravity, but we hardly ever order a specific gravity just to say, oh, that person's in cardiogenic shock. But it's in a UA, tells us, it is only diagnostic to tell us how dilute that urine is. The higher the number, the more concentrated it is. Okay, so when you're in cardiogenic shock, the hormones in the body come to your rescue because the kidneys are the first to indicate that something is wrong. The baroreceptors, the kidneys are like, I'm not getting enough blood, there's something wrong, I'm going to throw out this renin. The renin is going to make the angiotensinogen turn into angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 2 is angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2 is converted in the lungs. So we give ACE inhibitors to prevent this because people's blood pressure is too high. Too high. Okay? So, last week or sometime, Nicole asked us about acronyms. Since we're talking about angiotensin 1, angiotensin 2, and we block that with ACE inhibitors. ACE, A stands for angioedema, C, cough, elevated potassium, E. That's what you have to watch for with ACEs. Angioedema, cough, elevated potassium. So whenever the kidneys are messed up, your blood pressure is going to be messed up. A lot from this here, the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone syndrome. Now if I ask somebody to explain that, could you explain it to your neighbor? Sure you can. It's pretty simple.
No, I
It's
still don't
pretty
understand.
amazing. I mean, that's pretty amazing. Every time, you have people with orthostatic hypotension, but on this clicks in. You tell them to do what? Get up slowly and wait a minute. What are we waiting on? We're giving them blood? Waiting on this.
Is this the cytokine-based inhibitors or
Do what?
treat? What is it for?
That's, the side effects. The persistent
The
cough.
ACE, the ACE is a side effect of ACEs. I just threw that in there because angiotensin 1 and angiotensin 2, we give an ACE to block that. We can't block the renin. We have to have the renin. Okay.
So why,
I hear you. but
explain the
yes.
serum creatinine again?
Where you at? Serum creatinine.
Why it being increased?
Okay. So, when your blood pressure drops, what happens to the blood getting to the kidney? It drops. There's not enough blood getting to the kidney. Okay? So when there is not enough blood getting to any organ, it quits functioning. The entire function of the kidney is to do what? Clean. It is a filter. Whenever that kidney is not getting enough blood, that filter no longer works, and usually that filter gets the creatinine out of the body. That filter ain't working, that creatinine's climbing. BUN and creatinine many times will be elevated together, but BUN is more a status of hydration. A BUN by itself is not an indicator of renal failure.
So creatinine rises when your kidney doesn't work.
Tell me why. Think it through.
I don't,
You know why. You
I'm
know
trying to
this.
think what creatinine is. I
Creatinine
guess.
is a byproduct of all the waste in your body.
Okay,
So it has
then that makes sense.
creatinine is just a waste product. Whenever the kidneys are not working, it climbs. So whenever you have a high creatinine, you know what? Kidneys aren't working. So what? What does that mean for a nurse? I don't care. Kidneys aren't working. Sucks
Depends
for
on us
them.
not giving them certain meds.
Do what?
Depends on if we're gonna give a certain med.
We got to worry because if we give meds, let's talk about Motrin. If we give a bunch of Motrin, it's going to build, and we would never give somebody with a creatinine of 2 or 3 Motrin because that's going to clog the kidney more. It's going to make their what's working quit working. Had a student last week. She just graduated. She was coming to their study session, and afterwards she's like, I got to talk to you, I got to talk to you, I got to talk to you. Okay. Okay, so my patient's on dialysis. Okay. Well, I gave him a suspended release med, but I gave it to him at like 10 o'clock, but like at 3 o'clock we had to code him because he wasn't breathing. Did I do that? What did I tell her? Yeah, you did. Yes, you did. She was like, oh my God, she was crying. I'm like, hey, let me tell you my story. When I was an undergrad, I was in neurotrauma, and I had a patient that couldn't swallow, had a tube feeding, and he had some IR ordered. How am I going to give it to him? I'm going to crush it. I crushed it, and I gave him immediate release, whole bunch, no, it was extended release, over a long period of time. I gave him all this extended release, bam, right at once, crushed it. He quit breathing. I was just like, dang, that stuff really worked good. Yeah.
So when you do run into that situation, would you have to call the doctor?
She was so mad. She's like, the doctor was just standing
No,
there.
I meant the extended release.
For me?
Yeah.
You don't
If
crush
knew-
extended
Well,
release.
if you knew, like, if you knew that they can only get 2 feedings and you have an extended release, would you call the doctor and say, hey, I can't give this? Or
Yes, you would hold it, or give it and have the family fire you. Yeah.
like it's okay to call and say, I can't give
Yeah,
this.
that's nursing judgment. I can't give this because we can't crush this med. Back then, they didn't have, like, warnings. Now it'd say, do not crush, and I'm over there crushing it. My nurse manager's like, you did not do that. Yeah, I do. She's like, oh my God. So anyway, this student's very, very upset. I've got a patient that don't have any renal function. I gave him this extended release, and he was fine. But then later he quit breathing. I'm like, yeah, he was fine because every time you gave it, it's stacking. It's not going anywhere. All those cells are being saturated. She's like, but the doctor was right there. Like, do you think the doctor thought about it? No. That is what nurses do these days. Nurses save their patients. Your patient's outcome depends on how good the nurse is taking care of you that shift. Fact. Fact.
Did she still have a nurse precepting her?
And I said, do you think your nurse even knew? She's like, I don't know. She didn't. When I asked her if I did it, she never came up with me. But then later, the charge nurse came up to me and was asking her questions, and then she blamed it on me. Now I'm like, okay, but what did you learn? Guys, you're going to have lots of learning experiences. I had that. I got fired real quick. Not, just the family fired me. Another really bad, very bad incident I had was I was working, and times have changed a lot. I was a new grad working here in the ICU. I had a woman come in. She was in her 50s. That was really old to me then. Now it's not. She came in and AFib. She came to our unit. I had a new doc, a resident doc. We still have those. It was me and the resident. His superior was gone, and I was on my own. And we're going to solve the problems with this patient. He's like, that's shocker. Okay, that's what we do. That's exactly what we do. Shocker. Boy, she did great, man. She went from AFib to normal sinus rhythm. Well, we did that. She died. Threw a clot and died. You do not shock anybody in AFib without anticoagulating. Oops, I missed a step. I didn't know. She's still dead. She's dead as dead can be. We couldn't get her. She blew from here up through a big PE. I don't tell you these stories to scare you. I tell you these stories to let you understand that you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But if you think ahead, I probably knew. I know now. I don't know if I knew then, but when the next morning Kim Gideon came in, one of the best nurses I've ever had the opportunity and the pleasure to work with, she's like, did you anticoagulate her? You kill her. I didn't know. I was wrong. She was dead wrong. I had a doctor right beside me. From that day forward, I took a lot more responsibility for my actions. I thought everything through. I absolutely questioned why. The critical thinking really hit home then. Before that time, I was just task-oriented. Sure, let's do it. We learned how to do that in school. I waited so long to do this. It wasn't cool at all when she just died. And I didn't even have a clue. I just knew she had a clot. She had a PE from here up. I mean, she had a line. I did that. Me and that doctor did that. Me and that doctor still see each other.
Did he learn too?
Oh, yeah. But you can't quit. Like I was telling that nurse yesterday, which happened to pass her boards, by the way. She called me today. I passed. Of course she did. Because see, this test you're going to take is minimal safety. Minimal. You have so much to learn. So you're going to have a lot of experiences, a lot of thinking ahead. I don't know if a lot of you know this, but I work in administration at the hospital, house supervisor. They like water you over the entire house. North, Monette, Branson, South when I work. I got that job because Dr. Simpson's an ass. He is. He came to me one day, or actually we got a patient from the 3rd floor because Dr. Simpson wanted to give neostigmine. Oh, we don't give neostigmine. Yeah, he's going to give it. Dr. Simpson is a hell of a surgeon. I'd let him take care of me anytime, especially if we were in a trauma. But I was not going to give neostigmine with him. He chewed me out for that patient. He called me everything you can't imagine. The patient was alert and oriented. He's like, well, what's the matter with you? Don't you practice medicine? No, sir, I do not, but I'll assist you. Nurses do not practice medicine. Doctors do. He chewed my butt. I don't know what's wrong with you. And I said, I'll be right here with you. You go ahead and give the med and I will help you. Well, I've given this lots. He was giving it so I could fart. Relax and fart. I called surgery. I looked in our policies, everything. There was no policy on that. I called surgery and they're like, dude, don't give that. That'll slow everything down. But he was adamant, so I assisted him. We gave it, the patient's heart rate dropped. He was freaking out. It was like 28. He's like, are you going to give atropine? I'm like, no, I'm not. The guy's not symptomatic. I mean, the guy was symptomatic. You don't give meds unless they're symptomatic. You would have somewhere to go for when they are symptomatic. Now, this has happened after I'd learned a lot. It took a lot of courage to stand up to him. What he didn't know, what I didn't know, is the man laying in that bed was a VP's dad, or it was a relative. Soon after, me and Dr. Simpson were asked to develop a protocol for neostigmine. We still don't give it that way. My point in telling you that is, it's just because they're a doctor telling you to do something, a charge nurse, you be respectful, but you still look out for your patient. You're still a patient advocate. I had my charge nurse say, do it and just chart that you don't feel comfortable doing it. Yeah, okay. No. So if you want to do it, you do it, and I do it. She didn't do it either. But she was going to throw me under the bus. You have to be strong. And I'm going to tell you, you're not going to get bathroom breaks, you're not going to get lunch breaks, because once you become a nurse, it's not about you anymore. It's about that patient in the bed. So don't come to work and say, oh my God, my life is just full, and you got a patient that may not make it through the day. That infuriates me. It's not about you anymore, it's about them. Last question. All right. A patient has sustained multiple trauma, has arrived at the emergency department. Place the assessments in order of priority. So this is going to be A, B, C, D, D, B, however they're going to go. Ready? Internal looking at me like she's crazy. Yes, I am. Somebody asked me today, have you ever, no, somebody today, former student, Zach, and you get the privilege of working with Zach, Dampier, and MICU. I'm going to go and center, he says. I'm like, oh, that's so sad. He's like, why? And I said, because I'm too much like them. Whenever I was a student there, I thought I was just like those people. I really felt sorry for them because I was just like them. So I'm probably clinically psychotic. My family would agree. Okay, so have we answered the last one? We have. Okay, so who wants to be brave and say what order they put it in? All right.
I put A, D, B, C.
So read them to me.
So first you would assess their airway in patency, and then you would check respiratory rate and breath sounds. Then I put level of consciousness and then presence of external bleeding.
Don't be wrong.
I had that, and then I started thinking about it, and I did external bleeding, then level of consciousness. Because if they're unconscious now, but they're bleeding to where they could die, they're still going to be unconscious, but at least unconscious.
More That's exactly right, but if you want to make it simpler for NCLEX, airway, breathing, circulation. That is a typical A, B, C, and then level of consciousness.
So is level of consciousness pretty much always, like, going to be last if there's like breathing and bleeding things, and it's not even.
If they're breathing and they're, if I walk up to you and I say, hey, how you doing? What do you say? I just assessed your airway. From the moment you walk into that patient's room, you're assessing them. If you walk in the room and they look at you, well, hey, they know I'm here. They can see. How you doing? They can hear. They have an airway. You're like, oh, well, I'm okay. Well, they got an airway, but I need to assess some things because they're pretty short of breath. So you're doing way more than you realize. I had students and I didn't realize that. I walk in and I would start doing things and they'd be like, yeah, but you didn't do this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, yes, I did. They talked to me. They answered my questions. I'm talking to them. I'm doing multiple. You're a nurse. You don't have time to take it step by step. You have to put your cares together. So if somebody is talking to you, you're not going to, you've already assessed their airway. You've already assessed their breathing. You've already assessed their circulation. Would you agree? Okay. That is the end of our first study session. What did you think? So the first several, we will just